It's a madness. And every one of us knows it. Every one of us knows it. If you're an adult, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Whether it's the anxiety, whether it's the fear, whether it's the sorrow, whatever it is that afflicts you, we all suffer. And at the core of that suffering is one thing. It's one thing. It's a belief in the divine absence. Yeah. It is a belief that you are in it alone. What are two of the primary afflictions that grip men and women in America today? Two things. And there are many things, and it's different, and there's interplay, but two of the big afflictions are this. For women, one of the big afflictions is that I will be 80 years old and alone. To be alone. Or to not be taken care of. Security and loneliness. Those two fears. I'm not saying men aren't gripped by that. We have that too. But that's a big one for women. What's the big one for men? That I will come to the end of my days and realize that all of my efforts amounted to nothing. That I will look back on my days and realize I wasted my life. That other men may look at me and I didn't really accomplish anything. Yeah, I went to work and yeah, I paid my bills. And there's honor in that, but did I do something in my life? Did I have purpose? So we've got these fears, and they're down there, aren't they? You know exactly what I'm talking about. And it eats at us. But at the core of it, at the core, is a belief not in the divine presence, but a belief in the divine absence. You believe at your core, oftentimes, and I do too. We all do at times. The belief, when we suffer, the core belief is that God is distant from me. If there is a God, sometimes we may even believe. We've all gone through phases in our life, maybe where you were an agnostic. I don't know if there's a God, or I don't believe it. I don't have time for God. Or there is a God, but He's way up there. Oh, come on, Pastor. God doesn't really answer prayers. Maybe He answers little ones, and I'll talk to Him now and then, and maybe it'll come. I'm busy. All right, I got stuff to do. But to really believe in, experience, engage in the divine presence is something very different. Because all of those other things, God doesn't exist, or God is distant, or God doesn't really answer prayer, all of those are just variants of the divine absence. And you will suffer. If you believe God is distant, you will suffer. And I'm not saying that like taunting you. Oh, if you do, you don't. No, it's just true. It's just fact. Yeah. It's just fact. If you believe that God is distant, if you believe that God is absent from you, you will continue to suffer. The core belief, the only thing that provides comfort in times of fear, the only thing that brings peace to our anxiety, the only thing that tends us when we're in sorrow over the loss of someone else or to see someone we love suffer. I witnessed right after the motorcycle accident yesterday on Social Road. Did you hear about that? I drove by right after it happened. I happened to be there. It was awful. Some young kid on a pocket rocket, life ended yesterday. Yep. Sad stuff. Sad stuff. And there's nothing, folks. We all know it, right? There is nothing worse in life than seeing someone we love suffer. Better that I suffer. We hate going through suffering ourselves. But better that I suffer than one of my children suffer. Better that I suffer than my parents suffer. Better that I suffer than any of you suffer. Right? But when we're afflicted by that suffering, we are living in the belief that God is absent. We are living in the belief that God is distant. And Jesus came along and He says, no, you're wrong. Jesus came to teach us, to show us as rabbi that God is right here and you are nestled in the palm of His hand. And if you imagine big hands and you're sitting there, fine, imagine that. If you imagine, sometimes when I pray, this may sound silly. Everybody imagines it differently when they pray. There's no right or wrong here. What works for you? When I pray, honestly, I'm a weightlifter, you guys know that? I imagine God is like 120 years old, long beard, gray hair, that whole thing. Loincloth, but He's all muscle. and old guy muscle, but no fat, just old guy muscle. Because the truth is, for somebody as boneheaded as me, I respect that. And I see myself kneeling before God, and Him just coming over, putting His hand on my shoulder. He says, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. I'm here. What Jesus came to say, the whole purpose was to get us back into the garden. The whole purpose was to bridge that breach. His whole purpose was to say that God is not out there. God's got your 6. God is right next to you. God is filling you up. God is inside of you. It's not in all these things. God is inside of you. God is above you, watching over. God is under you, supporting you. You lay comfortably in the hands of God. The only issue is, are you dumb enough to not realize it? You smart enough to realize it? Has the pain of life gotten bad enough where you're ready to trust God? Or is it just God's still out here? He's a nice thing. He's a nice thing. Or has it gotten bad enough where you're ready to put yourself into the hands of God and really trust? Well, you think, yeah, but that doesn't solve everything, Pastor. It doesn't solve anything. It's not like it's going to make my problems go away. No, it's not. But you know what it's going to do? Actually, sometimes it will make those problems go away. But you know what it's going to do? One of the things my high school wrestling coach used to say is he said, you can always tell the conditioning of an athlete not by how hard he goes, but by how quickly he recovers. If you start out running, you may be sore for days and days and days. But then after you rest, you run again, then it may be only a few days that it takes to recover. Then it may be 2 days, then it may be 1 day. Gradually, you're building up a conditioning, a tolerance. You're becoming in condition, right? It's the same way. Relationship with God, it's not that it makes you impervious to life's sorrows. If you're impervious to life's sorrows, you're a machine, you're not a human being. Sorrow afflicts us all. I don't care how spiritual you are. A young man dying on a motorcycle on Social Road is horrible. It's sad. It's heavy. That's just heavy stuff. And the family, it's just awful. It is. And it's not that Jesus says, oh, you won't feel those things. It's not that you won't be susceptible to the anxieties and the fears of life. But in it all, the thread in it all, is I'm going to be okay. I'm in God's hands. I lost someone I love. I lost my dream. I do feel alone, but I'm going to be okay. Lord, I put my life in your hands. I know that I may lose everything. I know that I pray for this, and I want this. This is what I want for my life. No! Then I spend my whole life going after it. And this is what I want. No! And we pray. Is it a dream? Is it a job? Is it a person? Is it that somebody will live? Is it that somebody will not die? What is it? But we all have those things we want. Spend our lives going after it. What point do you say, Lord, I trust you? I want that. But I want to live. I want to be free of this anxiety. I want to be free of this hurt. And if I can have that, great. If not, I know that I will be okay. The truth is, here's the truth. Here's the truth. God always answers prayer. Every single prayer you have ever prayed, God has answered. I assure you of that. You may not have gotten what you wanted, or what you wanted may look very different from what you thought you wanted. I'm of the very absolute belief that God always gives us more than we wanted. Always. We may not realize it till 1 year, 5 years, 10 years after the fact. But have you ever had an instance like that where life was just H-E, you know what, L-L, right? But you look back 10 years later and say, that was the best thing that ever happened. Changed my life. Absolutely revolutionized who I am, what I'm about. It was such a blessing. Lance Armstrong, winner of 7 Tours de France, right? Had testicular cancer and brain surgery. After he had that, he won 7 Tours de France. He says, I believe that suffering is as important to a fulfilled life as our blessings. Yes. As his woman who runs his foundation, the Cancer Foundation, says, she survived brain cancer, and she says, the metaphor she uses is, my house is burned down, but I can see the sky. She's not referring to her house, she's referring to her life. She lost everything, but I can see the sky. We so often think, oh, no suffering, no suffering, no suffering. It doesn't happen. Jesus comes along and said, the point, folks, is that God is behind you, God is next to you, God is in front of you, God is over you, God is under you, God is there to fill you up. Are you so dumb that you don't see it yet? As the pain, and forgive me for using the word dumb, whatever.